when Samantha entered the MPD pyramid in 1945 on Moon, and after listening to her father telling her to kill every member and destroy every remnant of Group 935, and then seeing him get killed, she went on a rampage. Fulfilling her father's wishes, she sent zombies to every Group 935 site to kill the members working there and to destroy every last thing they had. And this included Doris. As the zombies started to invade the Doris facility, Richtofen and the crew through the teleporter made a quick getaway to Kino der Toten. But after disappearing from Doris, a Russian and American standoff took place. As the war came to an end, both forces wanted to salvage the work of Group 935 for benefit of their own countries. The Russians and the Americans fought over the equipment left at Doris by Group 935, and as they fought over and started to take the equipment of Group 935's, this was followed by a massacre of the zombie population. The Americans were killed trying to steal the equipment from Doris. The same thing happened to the Russians. They were slaughtered by the zombies whilst trying to steal the equipment, and only a few people made it out alive. The Americans managed to take the base frame of one of the Group 935 teleporters back to the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia, whilst the Russians managed to steal the other half of the teleporter and took it back to the Cosmodrome in the Soviet Union. Whilst both countries managed to steal other parts, other pieces of equipment from Group 935, they then went to other overrun Group 935 outposts and took even more equipment. The Americans took the Winter's Howl, the Russians took schematics of the Thunder Gun. Once all of the scrap had been salvaged from Group 935's outposts hidden throughout Nazi Germany, the Americans then started to experiment, debunk and take apart Group 935's equipment to understand their technology and to see if they can now use this for themselves. At the Pentagon in the USA, the US government had their hands on the base frame of one of Group 935's teleporters. They used this, they learned the technology that Group 935 used, and then used that to create their own teleporters that they planted and tested out with in the Pentagon. They also stole the Winter's Howl, where again, in the lab area, they took that weapon apart and continued to learn and take the technology that was used to create it. At the same time, the Russians were doing the same with the equipment they stole. But the Americans realized that actually if they worked alongside the Russians, they could ultimately together discover more about Group 935. And so now, the Americans at the Pentagon and the Russians at the Ascension base were working together. So for the next few years, that's what they did. Within that time, it seemed like the US government were also experimenting on people. One of the scientists at the Pentagon volunteered to be a test subject. Now, while it's not clear what exactly the Americans were intending to do, we do know their experiment went wrong and they accidentally created someone we call the Pentagon Thief. And this guy had the ability to teleport from one place to another. You can also find a portrait of Richtofen in the Pentagon. It's thought that the Americans also took this from one of the Group 935 bases, but for what reason, we don't know. However, the Americans continued to experiment using Group 935's equipment for themselves. And this continued for years until we get to 1963, where the Cold War was in its prime. Tensions between the Soviet, Cuba, and the US were high. And so JFK, the President of the United States, Robert McNamara, the US Secretary of Defense, Richard Nixon, the former President of the United States, and Fidel Castro, the President of Cuba, were all invited and called into a meeting in the Pentagon. And they were here to discuss tensions on the Cold War, to see if they could negotiate some kind of deal. But partway through the meeting, zombies then begin to break into the Pentagon, where all four characters then grab a weapon and fight to fend their lives off against the zombie horde.
For time and the world do not stand still. Change is the law of life, and those who look only to the past or the present are certain to miss the future. I said, are certain to miss the future.
Oh no, I missed that.
Prime Minister Castro, this missile crisis was the last straw. We almost blew ourselves up. Now, we invited you here today...
In good faith.
In good faith. To sort this thing out.
And why is he here? He lost.
As I always say, forgive your enemies, but remember their names. Now, gentlemen, as I like to think, in the long history of the world, that there are only a few generations.
Sounds like someone breaking in.
It's just a storm, Dick. Sit down.
Oh my God!
It appears the Pentagon has been breached.
Zombies. Gentlemen, at times like these, our capacity to retaliate must be, and has to be massive, to deter all forms of aggression. Gentlemen, lock and load.
Viva la revolución!
Any last words, Mr. President?
Yes, Jack. Any superlative words of inspiration for our humble troops?
Do not pray for easy lives, my friends. Pray to be stronger men.
Meanwhile, at the same time, the outbreak also happens at the Ascension base, where the zombies break in and attack and kill the Russians. And not knowing of the outbreak at Ascension, the 4 survivors in the Pentagon attempt to call the Russians at the Ascension base to tell them of the outbreak and ask for help, but no one answers. No one answers because everyone at Ascension is dead. But when we play, when Richtofen and the crew travel to Ascension, we can actually pick up the phones and we hear JFK and the other characters fighting off against the zombies. That's how we know that 5 and Ascension take place at the same time. Still fighting off against the zombies inside of the Pentagon, Robert McNamara, the US Secretary of Defense, hides inside the janitor's closet, where on a radio he records in there, he says that he fears that the other members, including JFK, Castro and Richard Nixon, have died, where he finishes off with saying, "Please pray for me." And that is the last we hear of Robert McNamara, where we could now assume that all 4 of the characters eventually were overrun and died within 5.
This is Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara. I am transmitting on a secure channel in the most dire of circumstances. The Pentagon is under attack from an unknown enemy. As of this moment, I am safely ensconced inside a janitor's closet. Unfortunately, I fear the President and the VIPs may not have found similar safe haven. From what I have observed, our attackers may be blighted by some kind of sickness. Either that or they're just dirty hippies under the influence of hallucinogenic substances. I can only hope that this message will bring rescue. Until then, please, pray for me.
So there we go, guys. That is the full story of the map 5, kicking it off for Black Ops 1. The next map will be Kino der Toten, so if you're excited for that, if you want more, you can let me know by leaving a simple like rating on the video. It only takes 2 seconds. Leave a comment if you want to see some more shit like this, and also let me know your thoughts. Make sure you are subscribed. Also click that little bell notification icon next tweet. Thank you for watching. I will see you all in the next video. Peace out.